Hello friend, welcome back to the Golden Rose Homestead. Today we're going to be taking a peek at some homemade peach salsa from getting them prepped all the way into the water bath canner. Let's get started. So our first step is getting the skin removed. And you're going to see that I find the seam of that peach and I just run that fruit and vegetable peeler along the outside and then just kind of follow along with the rest of the fruit. I've got a really light hand, making sure that I'm not wasting any of the peach. I really want to make sure that I'm only skimming off just the smallest layer to get that skin off. I'm paying attention to any dark spots, making sure that there's no mold, and then just kind of running the peeler over it a couple times to make sure that I get rid of it. Now that we've got all the skin removed, we're going to need to dice them up. So I like to half and then quarter them, and then get them back into a solution of the ball fruit preserver that I've got made up off screen. And that's a mixture of water and essentially some vitamin C. And that kind of helps pre-treat that fruit so that as you're cooking, as you're processing, your fruit's not going to start turning brown because of the oxygen. It makes for much prettier jars when you're done. I do like to work in smaller batches, which is why you won't see me go all the way down to dicing on camera. I like to get them to the quarter stage, get them back in that fruit preserver, just to kind of limit how much air they're exposed to before we get to the cooking process. Now for the fun part. I'm going to start with 1 cup of vinegar, and then to that I'm going to add 12 cups of peaches. I did have quite a few pounds of peaches to process, so I did double the recipe. So from what you're seeing here, please feel free to half that if you don't want quite as big of a yield as what I ended up with. I'm going to give that a really big stir, make sure that I'm getting all of the vinegar coated on the peaches, which is also going to help to make sure that they don't turn brown prematurely. Next up is going to be 2.5 cups of onion. The recipe technically calls for red onion. I didn't have it on hand, so it's okay to substitute. It just doesn't look quite as pretty in the end result. Let's turn up the heat a little bit. I've got 8 habanero peppers. I've left the seeds in per request of those that eat this salsa. This batch is going to be way too spicy for me, so please feel free to substitute with whichever heat profile pepper is best for you. From there, I'm going to add 2 bell peppers, preferably red just because it makes for a really pretty end result, as well as 1 cup of fresh, loose-packed cilantro. Next up, we've got 2 cloves of garlic that I had a little bit of trouble getting out of their bowl, followed up with 3 teaspoons of cumin and 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. It was at that moment I realized I forgot the honey. Next up, for your viewing pleasure, please watch as I struggle to get 4 tablespoons of honey into this pot. On the right side, this is the last ingredient that you need for the salsa. From here, we're going to bring it up to a boil, and then next I'll show you how to process it into your jars. Honey struggle is over, and we made it. So now we need to bring to a boil over medium-high heat. Make sure we keep stirring so that we don't burn or scorch anything on the bottom. Once we get to that point, reduce the heat, boil gently again for another 5 minutes or so until the mixture is slightly thickened. So off camera, I've got an electric water bath canner going, which I absolutely love because it frees up the burners on my stove. So from there, I'm just going to be ladling in the salsa into the jars. So for this recipe, I need a 1/2 inch of headspace. So I know that I've got some markings on the funnel, but I always like to double check with my tool. Well, looks like I need just a little bit more. And that headspace is really important to make sure that you're not going to end up with any siphoning or having any unsafe product. So I'm going to go ahead and double check again, wipe that rim down just to make sure that I am guaranteed to get a good seal, nothing in the way. I'm going to put my lid on and screw on the band just fingertip tight. I'm going to take that jar to the water bath canner and repeat this process until I run out of salsa. Per the recipe, I need to process jars for 15 minutes plus 5 more minutes due to my elevation. Be sure to check your additional time requirements based on your elevation before you start canning. Once we're at a full boil like we are here, I can start my timer for the 20 minutes. Once we're done processing, I'm going to remove the canner lid, wait 5 minutes, and then remove my jars. I like to put them on racks so that they can individually cool. Also really important to not touch them or the lids or the bands for at least 12 hours after you get done processing. This ensures that you've given enough time for the lids to seal properly. Once you've made it this far, it's time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Pun absolutely intended. If you follow this process and use your ball canning lids, these will be shelf stable for up to 18 months after processing. Enjoy, and remember, stay golden.